Hello and welcome, friends, again in the chapter 4 of English language teaching. In the classifications, the first three that we have already completed. Now it is time for number 4, materials for language learning. Now, in this part, we have to learn specific three topics are these materials as tools for learning, characteristics of good textbook or teaching material, and the last one, creation of materials, different perspectives. Without wasting time, let us move on to the first topic, the materials as tools for learning. What happens when we need to understand that what is exactly called materials? Now, there are certain points about materials. The materials are those factors which guide teachers to structure their lessons and sequence activities in the classroom. Secondly, it is used for teaching. And thirdly, it enriches learners' experience. If the materials are good, then the learner will understand things or the class better. However, there are some types of materials, and each material is significant. The first one is the textbook. It is the basic resource of materials for both teachers and learners. It helps the learners to learn new concepts and ideas. It will develop their reading and comprehension skills. The second one is the supplementary reader. It helps us to understand the extensive reading. As you can understand, that supplementary suggests extra, that there is a textbook and there is also the supplementary reading materials, where the learner reads a variety of materials and it enhances their reading skill. Secondly, it also enriches their command over language. The third one is the workbook. It helps the learners to practice and develop their language skills. For example, listening, speaking, writing, etc. And how do they manage all of this? Through different or various activities, exercises that they are given in the workbook. Now, I'm just presenting all of the pictures of workbook, textbook, or supplementary reading materials, etc., on the above section so that it will help you to understand what exactly are these. All of you know this, however, try and learn better, and why not? Workbook presents you fill in the gaps, matching, complete the sentences, etc. There are also true false questions, multiple choice questions, which will eventually help the learner to understand better. The fourth one is the handouts. First of all, it saves our time from taking notes. And it also helps in reducing learners' anxiety as they're exposed to newer knowledge. Sometimes handouts are interactive. It means they contain diagrams, charts, or photos which audio talks about. There are also reflections that the learners may write something by their own. The next is the teacher's manual or resource. These basically help the teachers to plan in advance the pedagogical style and the content of their teaching, etc. It means that how they are going to teach. This teacher's manual will help them, that means the teachers, to comprehend their ideas to teach the learners in a supposedly better way. The next one is technology driven educational materials. As you can understand from here, it is about the technology. These materials include audio cassettes, audio CDs, podcasts, YouTube videos, radio and television programs, etc. This will help the learners to acquire language in real life contexts. The last one is the visual materials. Visual texts like advertisements and pictures, they can be used as the stimulus materials which develop the learner's speaking and writing skills. So these are the total seven types of materials which are to be used by the teachers in the teaching learning classroom. The next one is characteristics of a good textbook or teaching material. The first idea that we have to understand here is that the design of the materials must be of 2 points. One is that it facilitates and aids learning, and secondly, it does not threaten the learners. Now, the characteristics are following. The first one is a good textbook provides structural scaffolding. Well, questions may be asked on this, that what is the structural scaffolding? It means the learners has to progress towards the stronger understanding of the content presented to them, and those will make them independent. Let me give one example. In case of structural scaffolding, that means the characteristics of a good textbook has to have that structural scaffolding. For example, if a learner gets at the beginning the basic idea or the supportive materials, the more the learner progresses to understand their learning desired aspect, for example, writing or reading or speaking, whatever it is, the teacher has to remove those factors from the understanding of all the materials. It means the supportive materials that the teacher implements in the learning process, those have to be removed gradually because they are no longer needed. In some of the textbooks, what you may find, there are reading begins with the teaching related vocabulary and it gradually moves on to skimming and scanning. And later, it teaches intensive reading. That means the detailed reading. Now, you may ask, what are the benefits of this kind of teaching materials? It actually helps the learners to become proficient readers. Most significantly, scaffolding not only helps the younger learners, but also the younger teachers who can rely to a such extent on the textbooks. For them, it is also beneficial. The second point is the materials must be localized. It means that suppose a learner belongs to a part where the teacher or the materials are given in a way that the learners from that part may not understand. For example, if the learner belongs to West Bengal, if something is represented to him about Sikkim or Nepal, the learner may not understand. Therefore, materials must be localized so that the learners can relate to it. It is significant for the younger learners so that the language provided to them or the materials provided to them may not seem to them as alien, and eventually it will make their learning process very difficult to them. So the materials must be localized so that they may not face any problem or hindrance in learning. The acquisition or the goal must be achieved. The third point is materials must be free from any ideological biases. While designing materials, one must aware of this fact that he or she has to be sensitive to gender, marginalized sections of the society, and persons with disability. Because all of the learners you may get in a classroom. So you have to design materials in that way so that every learner can get their lessons properly or at least understand the materials properly. Number four is that materials must contain a balanced approach. Balanced approach means that the learner will get the knowledge about the four skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, writing. It focuses on the functional part of the language. It is not the accuracy which is in demand. In this part, grammar and vocabulary are also taught. However, they are taught in context which the learners can relate to. Next point is that materials must give the learner sufficient exposure. If the materials are good, they can give the maximum exposure to the learners. The materials must expose the learners to a variety of texts. Not only that, they can expose themselves to the advertisements, visuals, literary texts, drama, dialogues, etc. These materials may carry interesting activities and tasks. The learners may practice these tasks in the classroom scenario, and in that way, they can develop their language sense better. These are the characteristic features of the good textbook or teaching materials. Now, number third is the creation of materials, different perspectives. And what are the perspectives? Three types of perspectives are here, different materials: graded, adapted, authentic. Graded materials are that in a book, the first chapters are easier than the latter chapters. What I mean, there is a process of increasing the difficulty level gradually. First, you have to present something that the learner can easily grasp. Therefore, materials are graded in terms of difficulty level of language and content. This gradation deals with deciding the order in which words, sentence structures, topics, language functions, and language skills are presented to the learner. Now, think about a book where the first chapter begins with the easier aspect, and gradually, when you move towards the next and next and next chapters of a book, then the chapters become difficult and more difficult and the most difficult. This is the system of gradation. The second one is adapted material. The language and content of the adapted texts are simplified to make easier for the layman to read. Sometimes you have noticed that the original texts are rewritten. Why? Because, for example, in many of the CBSE syllabus or ICSE syllabus, you can notice that those texts are rewritten in order to make it clearer or easier for the learner to grasp. This rewriting process is called adaptation. This makes the material suitable for a group of learners. Those children who are learning foreign language, adapted texts are very sincerely helpful for them. Those students or learners may find difficulty in understanding the lexis and structure of the text written for the adult. So adaptation for them may help in a different way. It is simplified. In most of the cases, we have seen that audio version of the text in YouTube or the abridged or shortened version of the text. For example, if you are reading Great Expectation, the abridged form when you will read, you can understand better. Despite reading the shorter version, that is the abridged version, or the adapted version of the text, you may have the same kind of feeling which you may not have when you start reading the whole text, the original text. And about this originality, the next point is authentic, that authentic texts or original texts are not altered like in communicative language teaching. So original text means original text. They are not altered. These are the real life texts represented in our environment. Texts such as newspapers, magazines, advertisements, samples of natural speech on the television, restaurant, menus, photos, user manuals, brochure, calendars, etc. are some examples of authentic texts. These are real, these are authentic. What you see in front of you printed in a printed version, these are authentic texts, not abridged nor adapted. This gives a perspective of materials creation, which is completely opposite than the previous version, that is the adapted text or adapted materials. As from the term, you can understand that authentic suggests original, no altered version is given here. While we are talking about the communicating language system or teaching language system or communicative language teaching, there you have to present the original text, not the abridged version, because this will give you the real life experience of the text. And when you are experiencing the real life text, that means the original version of the text, then your communicative skill will be better because you will learn better, you can listen better, you can read better, you can write better. So these are the different materials, graded, adapted, authentic. There are differences, and I hope I have made you clear about all the ideas, differences between these three types and the other parts too. Now, these are the questions that you have to answer, and there are 6 questions. From this part, I have selected 5 and 10 marks as questions. The questions are easier, the questions you can answer. And finally, stay healthy for always, and thanks again.